Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, we're recording this in the middle of the first college football Saturday of the fall, and man, it is glorious. The first true full college football this Saturday of the fall. College football is undefeated. Wisconsin isn't, but college football is undefeated.
Poor Wisconsin. If only they could figure out how to run the ball and then also throw the ball, they could be pretty good. And they did not do that today. Um, it's good to see Oklahoma's defense is back. That was nice,
Mm-hmm.
giving up 35 points to Tulane and getting a bailout from a ref late in the fourth quarter on an interception that got overturned because of some terrible pass interference call. But that's college football. It's the good, it's the bad. You take them both, and there you have college football.
I don't think that's actually how that song goes, but that's okay. That's okay. We have
That would
and
be a
here's
better theme song than anything ESPN has ever given us.
that's true. And we are actually going to talk a lot more about the whole day in college football tomorrow. That show will be out on Sunday. We're going to let the rest of the day in college football happen because there's actually a bunch of exciting college football stuff still to come as of the time we're recording this. So today, instead of the rest of college football, we're going to talk about the Ohio State game, what we learned rewatching the Ohio State game after we got home, and then tomorrow we'll have kind of the rest of college football because man, I have some thoughts on several of the games we've discussed, and we're only through one window of games so far. So I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to watch the Ohio State game live. I'm watching up in the press box where like you get to see it, but you don't get to see it. While you can see everything, you can't really see everything and you can't hear anything. There's no replays really. And I have a thousand times better vantage point than Tom, who is watching it through a camera lens. And then you have to go back and rewatch to be able to see everything that you missed. And so I think this is a good way to revisit some of the stuff. Maybe it confirms some things. Maybe it shows some things we weren't expecting, and maybe it just clarifies some other things. But so yeah, this is just gonna be some takeaways that we had from the game. I guess I will go first in that. For me, the defense that we saw from Ohio State against Michigan is not going to be the same defense. Minnesota rather is not going to be the same defense we saw against Oregon because these are two different offensive styles. And say what you want about how Ohio State gave up 31 points to Minnesota and they didn't stop the run. They gave up 200 yards rushing. Minnesota's offensive line with the extra offensive linemen, the unbalanced looks, and things like that. If other teams want to do that against Ohio State, by all means. If Oregon wants to do that, if anybody else wants to do that and take skill players off of the field and put offensive linemen in there so that you can get 6 yards a carry or, on this particular play, by all means, go ahead and take skill players off the field and allow Ohio State to try and defend what is out there. It's just what I saw from the Ohio State defense. There are question marks, but it's going to be a different play, different defense next week. It's like if you are staying in an Airbnb. Yes, your whole family is there. That is where you are, but it's not really your home. Next week, the Buckeyes will be back home with the defense that they have been planning for and building all off season. So we'll get to see a more accurate representation of the defense. Now that doesn't mean they live in a good home. It just means we'll finally get to see it. Now, they may be a bunch of hoarders, and you go in, it's just stacks of newspapers from 1956 or whatever, but we'll at least know, okay, so this is the Ohio State defense. I think that was maybe the biggest thing for me, just with the defense, because I know that's what the question was. And it's like, well, yeah, there are questions, but let's wait to see what the real questions are next week.
And my big takeaway from week one every year is don't put too much stock in week one. Like you go back over the years and it's like you can always point to, Notre Dame, Texas, the winner of this game will have the inside track to the national championship. And then it's like, oh, well, turns out they both won like a combined 12 games that year. And it was not because one of them went 12-0. So you don't ever want to put too much stock in week one. You saw a lot of substituting and rotating from Ryan Day and his staff, especially on defense. And you're right. What you saw in terms of personnel, in terms of scheme, is probably not exactly what you're going to see against Oregon. which is interesting to me because we're going in with questions, but that means Oregon's going in with questions too. Oregon's playing Fresno State right now, and I have not been able to watch it because I, like 97% of Americans, do not get the Pac-12 network at my home. But I'm sure the good people of YouTube.com will have that available for us a little later on this evening, so I'll have to look forward to that. But I don't think Oregon's going to be able to watch the Minnesota game and necessarily take all that much away from it, especially if you're adding Seven Banks, potentially adding Cameron Brown in there. Still waiting on the status of Josh Proctor. That could, change things quite a bit for this defense as well next week. I don't know how much Oregon can really take away from this. You get maybe some personnel stuff, but yeah, schematically, it is a very different Oregon offense than what you saw out of Minnesota. So that may actually work in Ohio State's favor. And the defense was fine. I'll say my first one was the defensive line was better than I thought it was. Because, this was a very, very good Minnesota offensive line. This is arguably one of the best offensive lines Ohio State's going to face all year. And, you look at the stats and it was like, well, once again, they didn't really get to the quarterback very much. Only one sack from the defensive line. That was Zach Harrison on that strip sack. And you got one from Cody Simon, and that was it. But they had pressure. And this is a very good offensive line. You are not going to get 8 sacks against Minnesota's offensive line. And, there were holes there, but there weren't like enormous holes there. That was a very good running back taking advantage of those holes. And they were picking up first downs. And I was all ready to think, oh boy, this is, I see major issues for the Ohio State defensive line. And then it really didn't. I didn't walk away from the second watching as concerned about the Ohio State defensive line as I probably was watching live.
Yeah, I mentioned in my notes, that was one of the things I had as well. Specifically, Zach Harrison was provided more pressure than I thought. It was also solid in the run game as well. I saw one play where Tyreek Smith, after the play, is complaining to the ref, and I'm like, I wonder what that's about. You go back and watch, and it's Tyreek Smith just being tackled and pulled down in order to keep from being sacking the quarterback. And so, yeah, there was more pressure than I expected, and a lot of the big gains were, linebackers should have been filling that hole because there was, Tommy Eichenberg, maybe I think missed one. I forget exactly who. Dallas Gant. There was one where he had somebody in the backfield and couldn't bring him down. Ibrahim, I believe, probably. And so there's a play made there. And it's like, there are gaps. We know that's football, but that's where the linebackers are supposed to fill those, or the safety, or whoever. And so, I wasn't as down on the defensive line after seeing them. But it's 200 yards rushing. Granted, 60 of those or whatever, or one play. And I know he had another decent carry. So maybe half of the yards came from essentially 2 plays. But, let's see what happens in the next one. If it happens one time, or once every few weeks, that's fine. It can't happen every week like it did in 2018, where it was like, yeah, but they only gave up 190-yard play this week instead of 2. So that's improvement. But, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, technically that would be improvement, but yeah, you continue to strive to improve, and you're going to have to improve pretty quickly because you're getting, that was a decent Minnesota team, and I think based on what we've seen so far this week 1, I think that Minnesota team has a chance to challenge for that divisional title. I mean, they're they and Wisconsin and Iowa are kind of at the top of that division, and yeah, that's going to be interesting because all of a sudden, Wisconsin opens with a loss. Minnesota opens with a loss. And it's like, yeah, okay. But again, sorry, I'm getting us off track. What was your number 2?
My second one is these Ohio State corners are really grabby. And they make Jordan Lewis look like he's hands off. Like these guys are grabbing constantly, and they should have been flagged for way more. I understand that's kind of the game, and that's what they're, taught or whatever. But the one time Denzel Burke was flagged, there were 4 or 5 other plays that were worse than that from everybody else that could have been flagged as well. And I don't know if that's a product. Part of it is definitely a product of, hey, this is the first time these guys have played. Like Ryan Watts hasn't really played. Demario McCall, we know, has never played. Denzel Burke certainly has never played. Legend Cavazos has never played. So I guess we can excuse the first time these 4 corners are getting action that they're maybe a little unsure and they're grabbing and being a little bit too handsy. And then also they're coached that way. All corners are coached that way. Everybody's coached to be physical. You just have to be careful with it. And the refs were letting it go, which I guess as long as they're letting it go, continue to do it. But at some point, there's going to come a time where there's a ref who's like, you know what? This game is actually about me, or this game is about actually the rules. And so I'm going to have to flag somebody on a crucial 3rd and 13 or something like that. And then it's like, but we've been doing this all season. It's like, yeah, because you've been getting away with it. We've been allowing you to do it. Now, I do think they'll get better and better. And, when you, like you said, Seven Banks, Cam Brown coming back, how does that change it? How grabby are those guys, their first action of the season? But I was just a little, just keep an eye on that because they're all doing it. They were all, just there could have been more flags. And so we'll see if that is something that continues all season long, or if that's something where it's a learning thing. And once you become more sure of yourself, you don't have to grab as much. It's like, like going down the stairs or whatever, and or making any sort of descent. Do you need the handrails? No, I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. I can go ahead and skip down this ramp or whatever. And yeah, they'll need some time, but they've got to back off a little bit with the hands, I think, moving forward, or else there's going to be a costly penalty in there somewhere.
Exactly. I mean, you've seen games decided, or not decided, but close to decided by pass interference calls. I mean, Ohio State's game-winning drive in the 97 Rose Bowl was a couple pass interferences, got them down the field pretty quick. There was a pretty famous one against Miami back in the 2003 Fiesta Bowl that you may recall, which was a great example of what you were saying. Like they were playing like that all game. Miami's coaches told them in the huddle beforehand, just grab them because they're not going to call it. Well, then they enforced the rules as they were written, and all of a sudden, well, guess what? They called it. And I forgot how that game ended. Doesn't matter. We're not here to talk about 2002. We're here to talk about 2021. I think the big thing to me on all of that is there's two kinds of, cornerback grabbing people. One is I am clearly beaten and I'm going to grab this guy and pull him down because it's 15 yards instead of 7 points. That's one. The other kind is I don't trust myself right now. And I saw a lot of I don't trust myself right now on that game. These are not guys who are like beaten way down the field. Those were people going, I can't let this guy get behind me. I can't let this guy get behind me. I can't get this guy gets past me, and just get grabbing. And you saw that from Minnesota too. And that's just, as you said, it is kind of that is kind of how the game is going right now. As defenses try to do anything they can to slow down the offenses because the rules are written in such a way that, it is pretty pro offense, the current environment in college football. So defenses are doing kind of whatever they can to slow that down. I think that I don't trust myself right now is something that resolves itself, but I don't know if it resolves itself in 9 days, and that's going to be the challenge because you're going to get called for some of that stuff against Oregon and Oregon has much better wide receivers than Minnesota did. So getting back Seven Banks, getting back Cam Brown probably helps with that. But I mean, again, these are guys who, yes, they've played before, so they're not going in completely fresh like Denzel Burke was, but they're also completely fresh this year because they didn't play last weekend. So you're still kind of going from ground zero on that one. So that has to be a little bit of a concern. You're right that Burke was, the one that Burke got called on was probably not even as bad as the play immediately before that when he grabbed the guy, got there early, and I was standing right there in that end zone and I saw the official turn, look at the video board, and like the whole crowd is going insane because it was on the video board and I had seen it live, and it's like, yes, that was pass interference, yes. And I think the official saw that and it was probably a little bit of a makeup call, but they should have had a first down in the play before that. So getting a first down in the play after that really was not, Ohio State didn't come out particularly bad from that, but you're right. I mean, that's got to get solved very quickly. And whether it gets solved with the guys from last week getting more confidence or the guys who didn't play last week playing, whatever it is, that needs to get fixed pronto.
Yeah. And to your point, there's only one grab that was a desperation. Don't want to give up a score. That was Ryan Watts, where he got a little bit lost down the field. Denzel Burke, yeah, he got flagged, but he was the real deal. And we said it after the game and watching it again, I even more confirmed. And for the first time on the field. I don't know how many games he's played at corner. Maybe this is his like 18th total or something, 10th total or whatever, just based on his career as a wide receiver in high school. When you are that natural and you immediately step into a lineup, and sure, you have two seniors that are down, but he comes in there and beats out the other guys and I think he played the most snaps of any of the corners. The future is only going to be brighter, and his trajectory is, J.K. Johnson and Jordan Hancock are going to have to catch up, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that's reality right now because Denzel Burke is only going to get better.
Yeah, and that's something that on Sunday's Morning Scoop, I've got Bill Green coming on to talk to me about, things that he did a rewatch as well, and he had some interesting notes on that as well that will probably cover some different ground than what we're going to be talking about today. But I talked to him about Denzel Burke and just how incredibly unique it is to have a guy come in and day one, true freshman, start at corner. Like that just, it doesn't happen. And he went through a list of some of the other guys who you think of as like the great recent corners of Ohio State and, where they were at this point in their careers. And it's like, yeah, Denzel Burke stacks up pretty well. So yeah, it wasn't great, but also he probably in any normal situation would not have been playing at all. So the fact that he was out there and did a passable job was like, okay, that's probably a very good indication that he is headed for some big things, a little while down the line, and just, hold all tickets and be patient and, check in again later this year, early next year, and see where he is then. My next one was kind of the inverse of the first one. I walked away thinking, wow, the offensive line must have been pretty good. I don't think CJ Stroud had a ton of pressure and the running lanes were there. And it was like, yeah, going back and watching, it was just, that is not a good Minnesota defensive line. I mean, this is very much the inverse of my last one where, you're going up against a really good offensive line for Ohio State's defensive line. So, they were better than you think they were. You were better than their top line results would say. This was not a good Minnesota defensive line. And, they moved the ball. And 10 yards per carry or 10 yards per play is 10 yards per play. You can't really question the results there, but there was stuff that was just kind of like, yeah, it was a little concerning. And I mean, this is a line that has not been playing together for more than 3 weeks a month, so they're going to take some time to gel. And they didn't have Harry Miller. I mean, all of those things are very valid reasons why it would not have looked quite as good as you might have thought it would look, but it didn't look quite as good as you might have thought it would look. And we don't know the status of Harry Miller for this week. If he's back, that probably helps. Another week of practice for all five of those guys together probably helps. But, we have seen, I have seen just a few highlights of Kayvon Thibodeau and Justin Flo on Saturday so far. And it's like, I think they're going to have a bigger challenge this weekend than they did last Thursday in Minnesota. That's going to be something that you're really going to need the offensive line to have a better game and a better week of prep, and in order to deal with what they're going to have to deal with on Saturday.
Yeah, there was a little bit, and it looked like it during the game there was some pressure. I just wanted to see where it was coming from. I know Thayer Munford had at least one where he gave up a pass rush and forced CJ Stroud, but I wasn't sure how much of that was CJ Stroud just leaving early versus the pressure, and then the running game. Just Master Teague and Marcus Crowley combined for 12 carries, and only 4 of those 12 went 5 yards or more. And half of Master Teague's carries went 3 yards, like exactly 3 yards. And granted, Crowley was out there in the fourth quarter when they're trying to run the clock out. That's when his carries are, but he went 1 yard, 2 yards, 7 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 5 yards. Teague, while the game is still in doubt in the first half, goes 4 yards, 6 yards, 10 yards. Good start. Then it's 3, 3, 3. And say what you want about Master Teague, but you should be getting push. And if he's going to run into the back of somebody, he should be doing it 5 yards down the field because that's where the push has gone. And that's what you get from that offensive line. But then you look at Mayan Williams and TreVeyon Henderson, who combined for 9 carries, 11 carries. 9 of those carries went 5 yards or more. So do you blame the line or do you blame the running backs? Just in this instance, I agree that the line had its issues, but Mayan Williams, 8, 71, 5, 2, 6, 15, 6, and then 2 and 14, or -2. So only 2 of his 9 carries were less than 5 yards. And of course, TreVeyon Henderson had a 10-yarder and a 5-yarder. I think the offensive line maybe will look better if it's more Maya Williams and TreVeyon Henderson.
Yeah, I mean that was going to be my next one. So I'm just going to transition smoothly into my number 3 one, and then we'll get to whatever nonsense you have later. But yeah, I mean the snap Bill Green put on the Ask the Insiders board. Bill Green does track snap counts on offense and defense, and there was some interesting stuff on defense that maybe we'll get to in the others receiving votes section of this show later. But Mayan Williams 22, Master Teague 12, Marcus Crowley 9, TreVeyon Henderson 7. That's I mean, you think back and it's like, I can off the top of my head remember 3 plays that he was in on because he touched the ball and did something good. It was a 10-yard run, a 5-yard run, and then a 71 or whatever 70-yard reception for a touchdown. Like, if you're doing good stuff on basically half of the plays you're out there, you should be out there for more plays. And I strongly suspect he will be out there for more plays against Oregon and every game after that. But that was like when Mayan Williams is in there, good stuff was happening. When TreVeyon Henderson was in there, good stuff was happening. Like you need those guys in there more. Those are the guys that if the offensive line is great, then they'll blast through those holes and get you a long gain. If the offensive line is not great, Mayan Williams seems like he can make chicken salad out of not great holes up front a lot better than other guys on the roster might be able to. So I suspect you're going to, the snap count next week will probably be Mayan Williams in the 40s and TreVeyon Henderson in the 20s, and then we'll see whatever everyone else is. But yeah, that was just very surprising to me because if just in your head you think back and it's like, I don't know how many plays did he play? I don't know, 20, 15 at the least, and then it's 7. Like that is not enough.
No, it's not, and I think they obviously realize that now. Does it matter? I'm one of these guys when not everybody. Ohio State fans are saying Tough Moreland is playing too much. They're just playing favorites. They're just playing seniors. And that's been this complaint that fans have when it suits their complaints. And now it's like, well, if they're playing Master Teague over Mayan Williams and TreVeyon Henderson, am I wrong about the favorites thing? Have I become my own worst enemy? No, I think you'll still see Teague, but it's like the results were the results. And I think the results will continue to remain similar, even though we know Master Teague can have big games. He rushed for 160 yards against Indiana last year or whatever, and has had other 100-yard games in his career. So he is a good back. But as we say, the enemy, what's the enemy of great is good, and I think Ohio State may have 2 great backs in Mayan Williams and TreVeyon Henderson. And as I said earlier, any snap with extra offensive lineman is taking skill off the field. As I've said about Jim Harbaugh's offense, every snap where the fullback is featured is a win for the defense. I'm not saying every snap that where Master Teague is featured is a win for the defense, but every snap that goes to Master Teague is a snap that doesn't go to Mayan Williams and it doesn't go to TreVeyon Henderson. And that limits the potential of the offense, knowing that at any moment Master Teague can also bust 170. But it's not the 70-yarder that we're looking for. It's the not 3 yards.
And there's a role for Master Teague on this team for sure. This is not this guy should never play. It's just there are times that he will be the best option for them, and there are times that he is not the best option for them, and that's true of basically everyone on the field. And I think this is also one of these don't overreact to week 1. Mm-hmm. They were sort of figuring out what they've got. You looked at just the rotations at some spots, and so the amount of guys they were playing on defense, and it just felt like they were trying to figure out what they really have. You go through fall camp and you have a decent sense, but how many times do coaches say you don't really know until the lights come on? Well, the lights came on. That was their first opportunity to see them, against another team. It was sort of a controlled scrimmage in a way because you sort of knew what Minnesota had, and you knew they had a good offensive line and they had a good running back, but the wide receivers were not going to be like elite wide receivers. The tight ends were not like Iowa tight ends. This was just, it was a good team, which is strong in certain areas, not as strong in others, in a very predictable way. I mean, you go back and listen to our shows last week. We're going to be telling you exactly what you saw on Thursday night. Like, they've got a good running back. He's probably going to run for a bunch of yards. The wide receivers are not very good. We'll see. Tanner Morgan's not going to kill you with his legs. Like, what you got. which meant you could, play those guys and put them in positions to succeed, or at least to, find out what you were dealing with. And they got exactly what they were expecting. And then, you learn from that. And I suspect that this is like the playoffs or the NCAA tournament where the coach's bench rotation gets a lot more shallow once you get into, you're playing, in December when you're playing Holy Cross and North Carolina A&T, you're going 10, 12 deep on your bench. Once you get into Big Ten season, you're more like 9 deep. Once you get to the tournament, it may be like 7 or 8. That's kind of, I think, what this season is going to look like for Ohio State. You're going to get that rotation kind of shrunk down a little bit next week against Oregon. It may widen out after that against Tulsa and Akron, but then it's going to shrink back down as you get back into the meat of the Big Ten schedule. So don't overreact to what you saw. Don't assume that, don't say that Master Teague should never play. There are times when Master Teague should play. There are times when Master Teague will play. And there will be times when Master Teague does stuff that makes you jump out of your seat and cheer. So don't, this is not this guy should never play. This is situationally, there are spots where they can put other guys in who might be able to do more. And situationally, there are times when they can put him in and he can do more. And it's just a matter of figuring out what they've got. And I think they probably did a lot of figuring out on Thursday night.
Yeah. I'll move on to my next one. But first, I want to say regarding TreVeyon Henderson, he is still like trying to, it seems to me like he's still not quite comfortable yet in the fact that this was his first game. So things were just very big and bright. So he's just trying to move forward. Now that once he gets his feel for everything and isn't just a straightforward guy, and even his second carry of the game, he broke a tackle. I think the more he's out there, the more comfortable he's going to get. And then he's really going to take off. Right now, he's just a bullet and he go, shoot him and he'll make, do some damage. But just wait until the patience comes into the game, and then you'll see something from him. My last one, CJ Stroud, say what you want, made some great throws in the second half. All 4 of his touchdown passes were perfect, and none of them were easy. Even the throw to TreVeyon Henderson on a little swing screen, like it had to go over the defensive end, and it had to have some touch, and it had to be, have some timing to it. We've seen how many times have we seen that throw get batted down or intercepted because the defensive end just grabs it. So it was placed perfectly. And that was only like 4 or 5 yards, 8 yards in the air, but it was a good throw. The rollout and touchdown to Chris Olave at the end, where Olave then ran through some stuff. That was a throw on the move. His first touchdown pass to Olave it was a throwback right over the hands, right over the fingertips of the defender, a perfect pass. And then the deep shot to Garrett Wilson, where Garrett Wilson had his guy about 8 or 10 yards in stride, never had to slow down. And so it was not a perfect start for CJ Stroud. As he said after the game, he had nerves and he had to calm down, and things are moving a little, like his mind was racing. And so once he calmed down, you saw the results. He was 5 for 8 passing in the second half. Completions of 11 yards, 38 yards, 56 yards, 70 yards, and 61 yards. And I know I've seen some Buckeye fans giving credit to, or maybe trying to take credit away from him or whatever, because, well, yeah, a lot of those were run after the catch, but the ball was placed exactly perfectly. And then these guys are supposed to make plays after the catch. So give credit to CJ Stroud for making precision throws on the move, under pressure, in his first start on the road at night in the rain. Let's cut the guy some slack.
Absolutely. I mean, that was not a perfect performance by any means. And you go back and you rewatch the first half, and it was just kind of like, oh boy, this, you could see, I mean, we had people, I know people on our board, and I know McCord was trending on Twitter at one point. And, that takes some faith from the coaching staff. I mean, you saw faith in the coaching staff with them putting TreVeyon Henderson in the backfield when it was raining and they had a 1-score lead in the fourth quarter. Like, that was a real act of faith by the coaching staff in a young player. Not pulling CJ Stroud when he looked like he might be a little rattled, that's an act of faith in the coaching staff. And pulling him, that is a tough spot if you pull him, because if you pull him off the field and then someone else comes in and goes right down the field and scores a touchdown, like, well, you're going to keep them in there. And then you start messing with his head. And then every time he you don't have every time he doesn't have a great start to a game, he's looking over his shoulder and wondering if is he about to get pulled. That was a big decision by the Ohio State coaching staff, and it paid off. I mean, I think that's probably is a testament to what they have seen out of CJ Stroud over the last year plus, where it has never ever felt to me like there was really a quarterback competition. Like it was always going to be CJ Stroud unless something really unforeseen happened. And I think that's Ryan Day falling back on, look, I trust this guy. I have seen this guy for long enough. I know it's in there. I know he can do it. And it's just a matter of settling down, getting everyone under control. And then you're not asking him to win the game for you. You're just asking him to get the ball to the guys who are going to win the game for you. You don't need to throw it 70 yards. You don't get any extra points if the ball goes all the way into the end zone in the air. You can throw it and the guy can run 90, you can do a little touch pass and the guy can run 99 yards and it counts just the same as if you throw it from your knees from 70 yards away. It's 7 points is 7 points. So, they have the playmakers this year that, you're going to have a bunch of those where he doesn't have to do it all himself. He just has to put the other guys in a position to succeed. And go back a month ago, we did a show that was, is this basically the perfect situation for a young quarterback? And you've got these really good offensive line, talented stable of running backs, and a bunch of wide receivers who can make you look good, because if you don't throw a perfect pass, they're going to catch it anyway. And then they're going to do something cool with it and probably run for a good distance. It's like, yes, this is a team that is going to set CJ Stroud up to look good. And then once, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are gone, then next year, then CJ Stroud probably has to carry a little bit more of the weight. But at that point, he's probably in more of a position to carry more of the weight. So that's probably okay.
Yeah, and he also had to pick up a couple of worm-burning snaps from Luke Whippler, which I wasn't sure watching it live if that's what I was saying, and then you see the replay and you see there's a couple of bad snaps there. But all in all, I think he's going to be okay. Tom, which you got one more?
Well, I've gone through my three, but
okay.
Another thing I was surprised about was how little Craig Young played. Because I rewatched it and then I went back and looked at the snap counts. Craig Young played 6 snaps.
Yeah.
Jack Sawyer played 4 snaps. Those two guys played fewer snaps than Steel Chambers. Like, what kind of odds would you have gotten on Steel Chambers will play more than Craig Young or Jack Sawyer? And Jack Sawyer, obviously, he's a smaller defensive end, so he's maybe not ideal for going against Lele, who's 497 pounds or whatever he is. So, okay, like I understand the Jack Sawyer thing to a certain degree. Craig Young was a guy who I thought was going to be the bullet in the running situations, and then he barely played. So I don't know quite what to make of that, because we figured Ronnie Hickman would be the guy who's playing more against Oregon, and Craig Young would be the guy who's playing more against Minnesota, and then he barely played against Minnesota. So that one was a little confusing to me.
Yeah, and I think it was Ronnie Hickman who led the entire Ohio State team with 11 tackles. 5 solos. So maybe it's one of those Pete Werner things. Like, let's see how specific we can get in these separate roles, and then it becomes, you know what, Ronnie Hickman can do it all. So let's just let him try it, and maybe that's what we saw there. I want to go back to, because I had a couple extras, and this goes along with what you were saying before. Ryan Day's confidence in his young players. Mentioned it after the game, immediately in our instant reaction podcast. Having TreVeyon Henderson out there in the fourth quarter, you're up by 1, you're backed up in your own territory, and yet he's out there. You see early I think in the second quarter, in the first half, you had JT Tuimoloau out in there in the goal line, inside the 5, inside the 10. Just CJ Stroud, as you said, relying on him and just giving him confidence, and just these number of young guys, Denzel Burke, Day is like, you know what? And then to just come out and start throwing it in the first half and in the second half. It's like, let's go. Be aggressive. We're all aggressive here. You're at Ohio State. This is what we're going to do. So I think the confidence he had in his young players was good. One last thing I want to mention, Bryson Shaw. We don't know the severity of Josh Proctor's situation right now. Bryson Shaw, I thought, played well in that game. And I know people might see him chasing Muhammad Ibrahim on that long run, but that wasn't Shaw's guy. And the fact that Shaw was running towards Ibrahim and then had to turn and chase him down. He had to stop and turn around, and while Ibrahim is going full speed, and it took Shaw about 40 yards to track him down and tackle him. So he's got some wheels. He was helpful in the running game, didn't shy away there. Hopefully Josh Proctor is fine because I thought he was playing very well, but I also thought Shaw had his moments. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, that's another good one. And I mean, that's going to be a big. There are three big injuries that we're going to have to keep an eye on this week in that defensive backfield. Sevyn Banks, Cam Brown, Josh Proctor. If those three guys are all back, that is one that is probably a far better Ohio State pass defense than you saw last week. If all three of those guys are gone, man, I hope CJ Stroud's got his arm loose because he's going to need to score some points on Saturday. And, and if you get halfway in between, if you don't have the two corners, man, it would really help to have Josh Proctor back there because it seems like he's doing a decent job of keeping stuff in front of him, which is, has sort of been the stated goal this year. So you really need to get one or two of those guys back at least this week. Otherwise, this is going to be probably a heartburn-filled Saturday for Ohio State fans.
Tom, any reactions right now to, I believe, Fresno State at Oregon is tied at 21-all in the third quarter?
Yes, I'm currently looking at the, with 48 seconds left in the third quarter is what I have. And the win probability for Oregon is 71% right now, which is like, it's down to 61.3% at the end of the third quarter. Like, boy, that's concerning. And also concerning, Kayvon Thibodeau is apparently in a walking boot right now, which, I mean, and injuries are part of college football. And we just talked about all the guys that Ohio State has lost, but it's just, it would be really fun to see Nick Petit-Frere going against Kayvon Thibodeau, or DeJuan Jones going against Kayvon Thibodeau, or Oregon's wide receivers having to go against Sevyn Banks. Like the whole point of college football is we're excited to see these players play, and it's a real bummer when they get hurt and they can't play. So you hope, and I mean, we had Ronnie Bell getting hurt for Michigan today was a real bummer too. That was just like, it's like, come on, man. Like these kids have waited a year to play, and Ronnie Bell's blowing up early and had a huge long touchdown, a really nice punt return, and then gets hurt. It's like, man, it is college football is not always fair, I think is my big takeaway. It's awesome, but it is not always fair.
Minnesota loses their best player as well. And it's just, it's unfortunate. Hopefully that's the last of it, but of course it won't be. I think that'll do it for us, Tom. You got anything else before we get out of here?
No, just we're headed into a very, very exciting week. I mean, we've got we'll have our week one recap show coming up on Sunday. We'll have our first game Michigan Monday podcast coming up on Monday. And then we'll have interviews with Ohio State players and coaches on Tuesday, and on and on and on, and going head first into what should be a really, really, really exciting week in Columbus as people are getting. I cannot wait. As loud and excited as people were at Minnesota. I mean, that stadium's like half the size of Ohio State's, and it got loud in there at times. Minnesota scores a touchdown and they do that MINNESOTA. I think I spelled that right. Cheer. If I didn't, it's because they spelled it wrong. They do that cheer, and it was like, man, it is loud in here, and this is awesome. Like, this is great to have college football back with like fans and bands and mascots and all that great stuff. I can't wait to see the horseshoe full of people on Saturday for what should be really a very exciting game.
It's going to feel like in like 3 days, we're going to be sitting around being like, can't believe the season is halfway over now. It just started, and that's the way it happens every, like, gosh, I can't believe this is already game 7. But it'll be here soon enough. But we until then, we've got games 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to go through. And right now we've got a fourth quarter game because I'm going to go watch the Pac-12 network right now because I have it. I'm one of the 6 people in America that can watch Pac-12 games. So I just discovered that this weekend. So I'm looking forward to watching the first and last time ever on the Pac-12 network. So that will do it for this show. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Check out BuckeyeScoop.com. If you're not yet a member, now is a good time to become one. And also you can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Thanks. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.